Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin.
I'm Josh.
Star.
Christian.
I'm the other Josh.
I'm Hunter.
All right, and we have a kind of all over the place episode because it was a very uneventful episode, in my opinion. Yeah, like
yes and no.
Yeah, there was a lot of emotions everywhere. And then we have news about Jedi Survivor. There was also a new look of season 2 of Andor, and season 2 of Acolyte is rumored to already have been greenlit, and we haven't even seen the trailer yet. So that's exciting. But don't worry, we'll get all to that in a second. Let's break down the episode. Josh, take it away.
All right, friends. So this episode is titled "The Crossing." We made it to episode 9. Any pre-thoughts? What was your opinions on the episode? Anyone?
It takes place in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it immediately had a very westerny feel, and I think the music accentuated that a bit too, which was sort of neat. Because especially their season 2 looks, I think, are very cowboy-like. So it fit.
Yeah, it was weird seeing the opening with only 3 members of the armored batch, especially going from the start of season 1 with 5 full armored clones, and then we were 4 for such a long time, and now we're down to 3. It's very odd seeing that transition happen.
I think this episode did definitely show the imbalance between the members of the batch now that they've lost Echo. But I don't know if we want to talk about this now or after the episode breakdown or
Immediately that first shot, and I was like, oh great, another gorgeous landscape view. I can't tell this is live action.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So like at the beginning of the episode of them flying in on that planet, I was like, "Ooh, this is really cool!" Like that. Yeah, it's just that first. I mean, comparatively, as you guys were saying, like last few episodes, it's great to have these giant establishing shots and being able to see out all these scapes that they obviously put so much time into. But yeah, I really like the beginning of the episode, seeing that giant like landscape.
Yeah, the music, which I'm kind of stealing of what Christian said in our in a group chat, where it kind of felt like it came from HBO Max.
Yeah,
like the vibe of it just kind of felt like it was like The Last of Us. Like
it was
kind
a
of
little Last of Us.
Yeah. And I just feel like it's the openings of these episodes are just getting more like of kind of giving that more live action like vibe. I mean, because the visuals are always stunning, of course, but it's just, every episode is just getting more and more like, is it live action? Is it not live action until we see the actual characters? Like that's how great it looks.
Yeah. So, I mean, we begin the episode with them basically getting a mission to go to a planet and go to a mine that has been recently purchased so that they can try and scavenge some extra stuff. Hearing that, like, this is Sid's involvement again, I thought it was pretty funny. I was just like, I wonder how many of them really trust her anymore at this point. So, but yeah, it feels like it's like a full-on ghost town. We have like those really big Western vibes, especially even with the music. So I really enjoyed that. What do you guys think of this beginning of the episode, bringing into this mine and the setup for the episode?
As soon as they landed, I went, "You guys are pretty far from the door."
yeah.
Especially the shot of them all like leaving the Marauder, and it has such a like importance on you see them exiting the screen while the Marauder stays in view. Like it really shows like they're leaving the ship behind.
They're going around the corner.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the other kind of dumb thing on their part was Hunter has very attuned senses and strong senses. Why was he not watching the ship? Because he could have sensed like if there was danger was coming, and he was inside the cave, and he had Wrecker, who doesn't have that skill.
I feel like it's morally showing the fact that, like, I mean, we had Echo watching ships this whole time, and they're kind of trying to find their footing now, whether they want to admit it or not, with having another less Bad Batch member.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting coming straight off of that. I feel like this is a it's understandable to make an episode that's more emotionally centered, where we have Omega's emotions coming to the forefront of this episode and dealing with the fact that she's now lost another member of what she would essentially say is her family. So it makes sense that this isn't as broad of a scope. I feel like we did need to go back and be like, hey, look, how are my characters developing with this? Because oftentimes I feel like we've had the clone-centered view be non-emotional because of them being soldiers in the way they are, whereas you actually have the prospect of having Omega being like, hey, you need to bring out these emotions. I'm going to be your key to being able to bring out your emotions and talk about it. So this is definitely one of those episodes that allows them to be able to explore that more.
Yeah, I think we already definitely really get to see it this early in the episode, like you said, with Omega when she's outside watching with Wrecker, and Wrecker doesn't really know how to console her at all, but we see a little dynamic there, and then you get some when Omega's in the cave as well, and I really enjoy that part of it. Like the main plot, take it or leave it, like it's fine. The meat of this episode was in the actual emotional development of the Batch members, and I know Star and I harp on this every single week that we love these clone-centric stories that really humanize them, and I think this definitely did that.
Yeah, I agree, because I think sometimes we do actually lose like their reactions to things because the episodes are so short and you have to pack so much plot. Like I really liked having an episode that was about like, hey, you just had this huge mid-season finale. What are people thinking about? I thought it was cool to not lose that reaction, especially like losing a member of the Batch is like such a big deal. And even, well, we'll get to that part, but we get to mention Crosshair. So, I'm going to go there, but we'll wait.
I will say if Echo does show up in the next episode, I'm going to be like, the whole point of like, then the last episode was pointless because the whole idea of this episode was them kind of dealing with that adjustment period of, hey, he's gone. So it's not really grieving. It's just adjusting to change. And that's also a very real, like a very real topic. People don't like change because it's so different from what they're used to. And people don't like things that are different at first, and they have to adjust to that. And that's what this episode was, really about, where they were trying to deal with the fact that they're not gonna, have someone that has been part of their journey for a decent amount of time, including Omega for her journey. Like with them, Echo was there like the entire time, and now that he's gone, it's like a part of her is gone, and she's trying to cope with that. And so, dealing with change is a very real thing, and they definitely talked about that a lot in this episode and dealt with that.
I think especially because the rest of the Batch, their modifications aside, they're all trained as soldiers, and we see this with all the other clone troopers in the Clone Wars. We're like, yeah, they feel the loss when someone dies, but at the same time, it's like, no, you have to bottle that, you have to put it aside because the mission comes first. But now that it's like, no, the mission is just staying alive and keeping the group together. All of a sudden, we're one short, and they chose to leave.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, did you want to say anything, Josh, before I jump?
I just want to really quick. I really like how this season it feels. A lot of like our openings, especially with the Sid mission episodes, we don't have they're sitting in the bar waiting around doing nothing. Then it's like, I have a job for you. There's the argument with Hunter on do we want to do this or not, and then they eventually go do it. We jump in when they've already accepted the mission, so it lets us really get into the meat of our characters and kind of break that little monotonous cycle we had. So we get a lot of that time developing these relationships and having those conversations, and it helps break up the episodes and make them feel more like singular.
A quarter of the episode on them just being like, should we? This is a little dangerous. I don't know. Like, I completely understand what you're saying there.
We need the money. How badly do we need the money?
So continuing on with the episode, we basically have Omega. They basically have Omega drill into try and get out. Is it Iridium? I believe that's what it was called. Some kind of mineral. Ipsium, that's what it was.
Yeah.
To be able to mine it out. They're at the meantime just basically explaining like, hey, you got to be very careful. And she's like, yeah, I know. I get it. You can trust me. It's okay. Also, in the meantime, we get a little shot of someone who is watching them in the distance. Don't know who they are. I was sitting there for like a millisecond. I was like, Hondo? Oh no, okay.
Dude, same.
I thought that too.
Yeah.
I saw that hat and I saw the bits coming down the back
Yeah.
of Honda.
For a millisecond there, I was like, oh, okay.
There's also, well, I mean, I think my first indication that it wasn't Hondo is that there's no way he would be that quiet. So, yeah. So, but do we have an idea or any guesses of who the character might be? Is it a totally different character? Is it someone that we saw before? I think they had purple hair, right?
So it doesn't look like hair. There's a close-up shot on the back
like
where it looks
feathers.
like it's feathers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes me wonder if it's either the feathers are part of their actual hair and head,
Yeah.
or if it's part of the hat. Because we know Gunji has survived and returned to Kashyyyk. What if there's other Padawans from that group in that arc that we're gonna run into? Because there's one Jedi Padawan who Hondo is very much like, hey, if you ever want to be a pirate, you can always leave and come join me. And there was something about the outfit that made me go, is that
Her? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I could
interesting.
I could see him make it someone. I could also see it just be like
random
generic thug.png.
He just
Right.
rolled really high on his lock breaking.
I
That's
mean,
fine.
I honestly would think though that this season would be the one where Hondo would show up. I mean, because they are on the run, they are dealing with kind of sleazy people. No offense to Hondo, but and I just think Hondo kind of fits that kind of description. And I think at this time, Hondo kind of dealing with the Jedi being on the run and stuff like that. I think that would be very interesting to see Hondo kind of deal with Order 66 because we haven't really seen him cope with it. He was, quotations again, friends with the Jedi. But in his weird kind of twisted way, I think he actually did care about Obi-Wan. I think he, did care about, some of the Jedi he did encounter. So I think that that seeing Hondo would be very, very interesting during this time period.
Yeah, I think it's in Rebels. Hondo says one of my best friends was a Jedi, or at least I think he was my best friend.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I thought that would be very, very cool. Yeah.
I mean, continuing on with the episode, we get more shots of them inside. They do the mining. They end up coming out, and we end up realizing that our mysterious friend who was looking at the ship ends up actually stealing it and taking it. And this is all as a storm is approaching on their location as the storm has changed course towards them. So nothing is going as correctly as they wanted at this point, which is pretty funny. And because of this, I guess it's putting more of a divide between all the Bad Batch members that are still around. So as fun as that is. So what do you guys think of that?
I want to know who this kid is because they have to have genius level intellect to get past what I can only presume are tech level security placements.
Yeah,
Taking the Marauder.
Their takeoff was kind of it wasn't a smooth takeoff, so I don't know if they're the best pilot because you definitely saw the ship kind of shaking and almost kind of tip when it took off.
Semi decent lock breaker.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's the master code breaker.
Maybe.
Yes, and they will actually have a purpose in the show and not just
sit there and gamble.
Yeah.
He didn't have a flower on his lapel though.
Yeah.
Or they, I should say. We don't even know who this person is.
Let's not open that can of worms. Let's not.
So continuing on with the episode, they end up moving throughout the canyons. Echo's Omega's trying to call Echo, and they're like, "You can't hear us. You're okay. It's just gonna be us for now. Sorry." They feel rumblings in the ground, and then we have a whole stampede of creatures. I guess I'm not exactly sure what their names are. Moving forward, it's just because of the storm, and we have them basically get to a point where they're trying to keep with all their stuff that they have. And what did you guys think of this moment of tension in the episode? This inciting incident to where they basically have to take cover again.
I think
Lion
the
King.
whole the Lion King, yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone's like, no, don't have a moment like where someone actually ends up dying, which was pretty funny.
Well, like I mean that honestly was like the first thing that popped in my head, and something that we talked about before we started recording was it felt there were a lot of different moments in the episode where I felt like someone was gonna die, and it was just gonna be like, oh, okay, cool, okay, so now Echo has left the group, and then someone is gone, like what the heck is happening? So I'm glad no one got killed. I mean, I mean that would have been a wild way for Riker to go too, because as soon as I saw him go down, I could see someone stepping on the on the containment unit and just exploding, and that would have been bad. And so
Yeah,
it worked out though.
I fully expected the Ipsium to explode as soon as they talked about how like volatile it was when they were mining it. So I was like, got it. So that's gonna blow up at some point, right?
Yep.
And then I
mean,
think
it did. It did. They got trapped in the cave after flying into there.
And then, but the big thing is, as they're walking in that canyon, we really get to sense of how much the loss of another member, it's not like they turned on us, or they're like like staying antagonistic, but it's someone who cares about us but has to take care of this other more important issue first, and how much that like hurts them, and they don't know how to process it because they're all snapping and angry at each other.
Yeah, that was really interesting how much Tech and Wrecker were arguing.
Yeah,
and it's even more here once they get trapped in the cave, but that's like not something we've really seen. They all kind of flow and work as a cohesive unit up until now. And I sort of mentioned it when we started the episode, but you can really tell how off balance the batch is, as well as the individual members. Right. They're all making mistakes and screwing up, and it shows.
The whole last season was them adjusting of the loss of Crosshair, and now they are going to have to do that with Echo. And I think that it's a lot to, I mean, it's not like, they're dead or anything, but someone moving away, or like someone like, kind of going on to something new, and you're so used to having them there with you. It's gonna throw off your entire dynamic because you're so used to something. And I think in the next episode they will definitely have the other adjustment period, because I got a feeling there's going to be some type of battle of some sorts, because they're going to have to try and get the ship back, or they end up getting ambushed or something in the place that they're hiding out near the end of this episode. But I think that it's very interesting to see them go through this, and you see them definitely argue like siblings, which I thought that was kind of a great dynamic because of they're older, but they're like they're like still like 3 years old, and it's just funny to kind of see that that dynamic between the clones, especially when they're like a very they are supposed to be these soldiers, but in a way, like what you guys said earlier, which was they are showing a lot of more human emotions than than what they normally do. So I think they're just adapting, over time. I
definitely feel like it's like their first time to where they actually are given this downtime to be able to be like, boom, like here you're going to feel it. You have no way of running from it, and you have to be able to deal with it to move forward. Yeah. And Omega has been that key to that, and I've been really enjoying that. I mean, even continuing on with the episode a little bit is them in the caves, and Omega just basically being like, we really needed Echo, and this would have helped us out. And Tech's just basically in the most Tech way of saying it is like, dude, we don't really need him. Like it's this, the Bad Batch has been here before him. We're gonna be here after him, and Omega doesn't take that in very well, even though she knows that's the fact. It's just that Tech just doesn't say it in a way that is like a way for her to understand like he feels the same way as her. So
yeah,
She definitely feels like she's one of the just kind of stuck there, being the one that just feels all the emotions, and no one else feels the same way that she does.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, that whole conversation, because you can see Hunter and Wrecker in the background just sort of like looking over at Tech, like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
Yeah, I think the line where like Tech was like, where he said, "Hey, like, you know, this has happened before, and he wasn't part of the group before. We're dealing with it fine. What's wrong with you?" I was like, "Ooh, that's
yeah, like, what's your problem?"
I was
your
like,
issue?
Yeah, oh man, yeah, no, they like gave Tech the side eye, and then Tech was like, "What?" And then he just, you know. I like seeing more of this kind of human side of Tech, and he's had a lot of story arc this season, and this definitely added to his character growth.
In comparison to last season, he's been a giant character.
I know.
Whereas you could basically have Echo and Tech be the same character in last season, whereas this season they are completely different characters.
So something that makes me nervous is because he's getting more character growth. There's a chance that he might not make it. Because that, oh no.
I was thinking the same thing earlier.
Yeah.
I think you could say that about any of them, though.
I know, but Tech's been getting a lot of character growth this season, though, and
but so
when
has
they usually
Wrecker,
happen,
and so I think Hunter's the only one who really hasn't, because he got more than anyone else in season 1.
right?
Yeah.
That's because Hunter became reluctant dad in season 1.
Yeah. And you have to remember that these characters, we don't see them during the events of Star Wars Rebels. They're not with Rex. They're not in any of the canon, you know, after of what we see them in the Bad Batch show. So there's a chance. As far as we know, yes, as far as we know so far in the canon storyline, like during the events of Rebels and everything, they're not there.
Which I think is a great thing to still be able to have that tension. I know that like a lot of the time we'll have characters where we know their outcome, or we know that they're going to be in a certain place at a certain time in the future. So you don't really have that kind of like deep feeling of any episode they could go, which is a Bad Batch specialty, and it's a great thing to have with the Bad Batch, is that we don't know the full outcomes of every single person. So it's exciting to see what the future has in hold for these guys. In my opinion,
honestly was probably the great difference between the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars, because in the Clone Wars you knew a lot of the characters' fate, like of what was going to happen to them. But
that didn't make it hurt less, Colin.
Well, no, it made it worse. But I mean, you didn't have to watch a new episode every week and be like, "Ooh, is Obi-Wan and Anakin gonna bite the dust in this one?" It's like, no, like we know they like make it. So and these shows where they're introducing new characters in the Star Wars universe, I think that's great because we don't know their full story, and we don't know the outcome of their journey. And with all of the character development that we've been getting a lot for Tech, you know, sometimes I feel like for certain characters and different shows and you know, in different plots and everything, is that's the character that, you know, might have to sacrifice themselves in order to, you know, keep the group going, or you know, or they just don't make it. And I just got a feeling that might be Tech, and I could see them doing it this season. It would be really, really sad, but you know, you have to think of that possibility.
I feel like this episode almost inadvertently reminded me of the Republic Commando book series, especially seeing the 3 almost commando units having to act on their own, divvying up roles outside of what they normally would. Very similar to Hard Contact with Niner, Atin, and Phi. But also connecting to their fate, it almost reminded me, we kind of, whenever we think about the outcome of a clone, like what their fate is going to be, it's Rex, Wolf, or Gregor, and they're living, you know, getting space slugs, eating them on an ATTE, or they die. And what if one of the big things of the Bad Batch has been, they have their own choice. They have, like, it's a big thing has been, what's life as a clone without a war? So what if, kind of similar to those book series, we see these clones learn how to live without a war, either becoming Mandalorians or just kind of living their own life, secluded, separate from everything. and learning to say goodbye to all of it. I think it'd be interesting to see a separate fate rather than death or joining the rebellion for any form of clone trooper.
I'm so with you, Josh.
Yeah, me too. I think that would be super cool because obviously, like, they either go out guns blazing at the end of this series, whenever that may be, or they do what you're saying, Josh. And I think it would be a really refreshing change of pace, I guess, to let them live.
Yeah.
But it would show a different, like, for clones in general, it would show a different development away from the we're soldiers, this is all we know. So even after we are no longer technically soldiers, we still behave like soldiers. Like, this is the Bad Batch learning to not behave like soldiers. And I think the ending that you just talked about would really take that to a new level.
Yeah.
I mean, it says something that the very first clone they meet after the Empire forms is Cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has a life outside of being a clone.
Yeah, that's true.
So continuing on with our episode, them being trapped inside the cave, Omega and Tech go off to try and drill into the walls, basically grab more of the explosive material so that they can. They're thinking about being able to use it to escape the caves. Yeah, we would definitely love the clones to have a happy ending for once.
For once.
So as they're drilling up, one of the things that I think was interesting is having Tech basically keep saying things that Omega already knows. It's like, hey, like, I understand it could explode at any second. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna get all that we can. It's he the way he responds to her makes it seem like as if Omega just wants him to be able to say, like, hey, you did a good job. And I don't know if Tech at this point is able to say that to her or her to get that gratification. But continuing on with the episode a little bit is when she ends up falling into basically the cavern a little bit more, and Tech just fully jumps after her, which I think will be her version of what it's like to have someone who actually does care for her, even though that's the way he shows it. I feel like Omega's not ever gonna have what she wants in her head of being like, hey, you're my brother, thanks for being super emotional with me, because I don't feel like these clones will ever be fully that. But I do feel like she'll have to learn that they work differently, but she can still get that gratification that they do care in different ways. And I feel like they're showing that with like having Tech just full on like jump after her. He doesn't know where that's going. He doesn't know like if she's dead down there or anything. He just goes after her. So I feel like that's going to be a little thing for Omega to realize towards the future.
Yeah, I mean, or conversely, like Tech, like he does at the end of the episode, could learn to like express his feelings more.
Yeah, definitely. So what did you guys think of a new inciting incident where we have the split apart from the team again?
They love their tunnels. They love splitting people up with tunnels. That's their thing.
It's just like Scooby-Doo. Like
it's the Bad Batch
trope.
trope.
Gonna split up, yeah.
Find a tunnel, split up.
Yeah, and shout out to the animation for how good that drill looked. Like drilling into the material, like the way it like worked with the material felt so real, and also how she didn't slip and fall into the pit. It was because the bit bit into the rock at an awkward angle and corkscrewed her around.
Yeah. I've done that.
Yeah, it was like I feel that.
That felt very relatable.
Yeah, not falling down a pit relatable, but being corkscrewed relatable.
Yeah.
Falling down a pit, accidentally chewing up a piece of armor, like it's the same.
Yeah, shirt gets caught in the bit. It's all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, no. The part where Omega kind of falls into the fog and falls all the way down into the water, that reminded me of Elsa falling in the the Last Crusade, of where she's trying to reach for the Holy Grail and she falls on through. I know it's a reach. But to me,
it's not. It's not a reach. It's there.
Oh,
I
good.
mean,
Thank you.
Omega's
Hunter, I saw
first thing
Hunter
I thought
shaking his
about.
falling
head.
into a misty cavern.
Colin, not
What?
shaking my head at the notion of an Indiana Jones reference, just shaking my head about the fact that your brain is so in Indiana Jones mode right now
Dude,
that
I'm
you're
sorry,
just like
man.
Indy.
Yes. I mean, did you not watch the Super Bowl?
I did.
Oh, dude, I was so pumped, bro. Give him hell, Indiana Jones, and I was like, yeah, let's go. So yeah, no, I'm so pumped for that. But yes, to me, that was definitely a reference to that. Christian, you were saying something. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
Omega falls into a misty hole the same way that Elsa does.
Yep.
And it's that same kind of reach, followed immediately by, at least in Indy, it's that, the floor falling out.
Mm-hmm.
And Tech is like, nope, cannonball, I'm going after you.
Yep. Yeah. So no, I thought that was great that Tech didn't even think. He was just like, oh, okay, nope. And then he just, he jumped after her. And I'm like, yeah, you're being an older brother. Great job. So yeah, no, I thought that was great. And the moment that they actually, have like down in the cave and Tech kind of explains his side, they actually talk things through. I'm like, that's great. I'm glad that the communication is happening.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically explaining like, hey, like I completely understand what you are saying and how this is our family, but we have to be able to move on and adapt to every situation. And I really like that, especially with our band of clones, is that yes, they 100%. This whole show has been them adapting and moving through different situations as the galaxy completely changes. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's cool that they actually finally get a moment to be able to talk together about this whole situation. Yeah. What did you guys think about that chat?
This dialogue is only happening because they're almost forced to have it. Omega and Tech are just in a cavern. The only thing they can do is wait. They have to talk about Echo because he turned off his transponder. He's not they can't talk to him to kind of close that gap any more than they have. They have to deal with it themselves. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this episode was putting them in situations where the only thing they could do was open up and talk about these situations because they couldn't solve it any other way.
I liked with that conversation that it brought up Crosshair, and of course I'm going to bring it up because I'm here. But I liked that it did that because I felt like it gave more explanation even into season 1, where you see Hunter and Wrecker are the only people in season 1 who really say that they miss Crosshair. They're sad about it, and Tech kind of deals with it with being, Tech-like. And I think him making the comment about Echo and then Crosshair kind of gives you some insight into the way he deals with stuff is just by he just moves right on and goes about his whole thing and just kind of is really callous. And I liked having him be well, we're soldiers, that's what we had to do. And it kind of gives you some back information about he's totally been upset about both of his brothers leaving, but
this is the only way he knows,
and he has to move on. And I liked that explanation. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, moving on through the episode, they end up actually meeting all back up through the water tunnel or water slide, basically. End up moving their way out, and they find a ghost town and end up moving all the way to the ghost town, which is a little rundown spaceport. So I did like that little shot of the town being far off in the distance, and they end up moving all the way there, and then it's actually nighttime by the time they get there. So
yeah,
I did like that town. What did you guys think of that?
I thought it was interesting that it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
We don't see those in Star Wars.
Yeah, I thought it was this is a very Western style of an episode. So I liked how they were it's kind of these mines have already been plundered through or whatever, and this is just a backwater mine that Sid was yeah, I'm gonna buy that. That sounds like a great idea. But yeah, I mean they use a telecommunications to talk to Sid, and Sid's I can't help you. So I was this is weird. I really want to know if Sid has something to do with their ship getting stolen or something, because it's really weird. I wonder if we're going to have this weird backstab moment in the future.
I was just gonna bring that up too. Like something seemed really off about Sid there, and we kind of got a little ominous hint earlier in the season in the riot racing episode.
Mhm.
But like to me, I think Echo leaving and the batch like having to deal with those emotions is going to lead to them like understanding themselves and what they need as a family unit or a squad or whatever you want to call it, but it's going to lead to them understanding what they need more. And I think I could totally see that ultimately leading to them separating themselves from Sid and going and doing their own thing. Like Josh said, living a life as not a soldier anymore, or regardless, doing their own thing that isn't like, hey, we're just going on missions from Sid. Like they still call them missions, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like
that's
the
like
job.
it's like a very soldier thing to keep calling it that. And it to me it seems like they're on their way from detaching themselves from that part of their being, or at least not totally detaching it, but realizing that they're more than it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, with this episode, it's interesting seeing like she just hangs up completely and was just like, "All right, I'll see what I can do. I'll get back to you whenever." So they're like so on an afterthought of Sid's whole kind of deal.
Something that kind of gets to me with that whole conversation is she sent them there to get the Ipsium,
Mhm.
and they don't say we don't have any. Which she would assume means they have it. They just said, no, the ship got taken while we were finishing the job for you. And she goes, oh, not my problem.
Right.
Like, lady, it's your money we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really think it was a Chekhov's gun in that like those last episodes, and I'm kind of wondering and where this is gonna end up going.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically we have them realizing like, hey, like I think the last couple of lines just being told like, hey, we don't really have rations to. Oh, okay, you're just gonna hang up on us, and then
So-
Omega's like, we'll survive.
Like I'm not usually one that's like big on speculating, but to me, they're gonna like Sid ditched them, so they're gonna call the only other two people that they know,
Hondo
Either
and
Rex-
Max Debo.
either Rex or Echo, who both happen to be together. So I mean, they might get pulled away from doing Sid's missions, and then they're like just into that fight of, hey, we're gonna like help save clones, and like that's their new thing, and this is how they get pulled away from Sid.
Yeah.
I think that if it's not Rex or Echo that pick up the transmission, maybe it would be Cody, and then Cody, you know, comes up and be like, "Hey, Rex and Echo are busy right now, but I'm here to help." And then Cody brings them to the rest of the group because we haven't seen Cody since episode like 3.
2.
The same episode we haven't seen
No, 3,
Crosshair
yeah.
since.
Yeah, jeez, yeah, which is crazy to think about, right? Like,
Yeah,
Crosshair has only been in one episode this entire season.
And then they had the audacity to make a Valentine's card of him.
Oh yeah,
2 of them. Different
Yeah.
armor sets.
Yeah.
goodness.
I was just curious. For other clones they could contact, Gregor was left with Sid at the end of season 1, and then he did his own thing. So that may be another connection to bringing in more of the commandos for later in the season, and a connection.
Gregor, yeah, because of Gregor, Wolf.
We don't know what about Wolf yet, though.
Yeah,
We do not know about Wolf yet.
Well,
Wolf is
I'm
the
just
question
talking
mark.
about all the clones, like in general, that that we haven't seen like in a bit and stuff like that. So what? There's like Wolf, there's Gregor, Cody, you know, obvious reasons, and then like Sev, Scorch, like the entire like group of Delta Squad. And then I'm trying to think. Is there any other clones I'm missing? I know I'm definitely missing some, like, you know.
We
clones.
know Rex has. He almost makes it sound like he's a big defaction, like a big number of defected clones that he's
been doing this for a
save.
while.
Yeah, he said he had multiple contacts back when he was on Coruscant. What the contacts are other clones, if they're senators or what?
Sure, he's got a ton.
Yeah.
And that gives me hope that they're not just going to kill the Bad Batch and that they could be off doing their own thing, even though they're not in Rebels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obvious that, like, there's millions of clones, right?
Yeah.
There's no way that they're all dead except for Rex, Gregor, and Wolf by the time Rebels comes around.
Yeah.
And we only saw them because of Rex's direct connection to Ahsoka.
Yeah. So something that I don't think I've actually really discussed with all of you. It has to do something with Rex, but it's like way further in the future of the timeline. Is how do you feel about them making it canon that Rex was at the Battle of Endor?
Yes,
I'm okay with it.
I dig it.
Love it. I love the like animated shorts where he has his like clone gauntlets on with the Endor armor, like I forget what it was called when they did those like really sick animated shorts.
Well,
I love that.
They also made it canon that it was the clone, that it was the guy that put on the scout trooper armor, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
yep. That's him.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know there was a lot of mixed feelings about that, but I mean, honestly, I think it worked. But I think that's cool that they kind of that they retcon that. Because I know they try to do that with Ahsoka and Attack of the Clones. There is that youngling in the scene where Obi-Wan goes to talk to Yoda, and then there's all the younglings there, and there's the same species as Ahsoka in there. And George and Dave Filoni talked about making it canon that was going to be Ahsoka, but it didn't make sense in the timeline because Ahsoka's way too. I mean, like if that ended up being Ahsoka, then she would have been way too young during that, and that wouldn't been able to carry over. But, yeah, sorry. I've been thinking about that question because I know a lot of people had mixed feelings about Rex.
It's not Star Wars if they're not retconning something.
Yeah,
right.
I feel like it's also people who are big fans of the Clone Wars, which is all of us here, are probably more okay with it than the people who like are just diehard original trilogy fans and don't like the Clone Wars. Like I can see them wanting to keep it separate and not liking the retcon like that.
Right. I feel like anytime you try and touch the original trilogy in a way that you can connect it to all of the other Star Wars, so whatever they could newly write, it angers people who are fans of the original trilogy.
Because it's all connected, though.
This is like their golden child that no one should touch and make anything. Because I feel like a lot of people had a problem with George Lucas's little changes that he made with like random stuff popping up, like something always has to happen. Yeah, like all this random.
No, I can't get over that.
They added more Boba Fett. It's great.
More Boba Fett's fine. McClunky, I
that wasn't even George Lucas. He like didn't want that to happen. They like pulled that out of the archives. That was all like Disney. That was not even George.
Well, like the whole Han thing is definitely him. So
Han shot first.
Yeah,
that's where I would say like we know the effects of what can be really annoying to the community. This is their golden child. Don't touch it. And if you can change something as small as that, and as us fans who grew up with Clone Wars, it's amazing. It's awesome to see characters like that. But if you're someone who grew up with the original trilogy, it's like, don't touch that. Don't mess with that. Add your characters after in the middle of it. Yeah, sure. But don't touch this original trilogy and try and add stuff into it. People don't like that. So it's interesting for me because that also opens up a can of worms of what they could change in the future, which is always scary to fans. So, I mean, if they go like, oh, and because, okay, so imagine if at the end of like the original trilogy, we get like some new scene where we basically have the Force essence of the Emperor come out so that they can try and explain what happens in the sequel trilogy. That would make people angry. So I feel like if you have the ability to be like, we can connect it to the clones, then they technically feel like if they're going to change it like that,
Right.
we can easily change it to this in the future. So
right. But the whole thing with Rex, though, it didn't really change the plot. And it,
I know that.
like,
it's just anytime you
it's
touch the golden baby, it's
yeah,
like,
I know, because of like, because I
Josh,
could not
are you touching
imagine
golden babies.
No, I hope you're talking to other Josh here.
Other,
hello,
the older Josh, the bearded
Okay.
Josh,
Non-bearded Josh.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I don't know how I would feel about that because like, could you imagine of you know of a Vader sacrifice, which it already sucks just to go all the way to the Rise of Skywalker and see that his sacrifice was was pointless because he put himself into his Force essence into a different clone, but actually seeing that happen of where like the Death Star would like the second Death Star would explode and you would just see like a small blue dot. And then just be like, yes, I made it. I survived. It would be like, no. It would be like, no.
That's where I'm 100%. I love when we'll do something that isn't necessarily in the original trilogy. Like it could be happening during the exact same time as the original trilogy. We could have like a scene you don't see in the original trilogy happen during it, and then we have like an animated episode that happens in it, and we basically have an explanation for something. I'm 100% okay with that. What I don't like is when we're just like changing something in that's already been put on screen. It works in the fact of this in like instance. But if you're going to go on screen,
lines,
exactly,
no name ever named on screen.
Yeah, that works 100%. But if they're just going to be like, "Yo, we're going to change some visual effects," then it gets kind of annoying. And I feel like that's the little creeping in.
Unless it's Boba Fett.
I'm okay with them changing the digital effects in the original trilogy again if they make them look better.
Yeah,
I do think one retcon I really want to see is what bounty hunter Disney current Lucasfilm will make Han Solo meet on Ord Mantell that makes him change his mind and want to leave Echo Base and Empire Strikes Back.
I think a
Ord Mantell is
threatening.
well Sid is, if I'm correct.
Okay.
wasn't it Boba Fett in the EU?
I don't think it was. Let me see. So
If it's not Boba Fett, I hope it's Bosk.
So
Of course.
so
Bounty
here's
Of course.
I want Embo. I would love to see live action Embo. I would love to see
Yeah,
Embo
me
again.
too.
I like of just him throwing his like hat, like
Yes.
like Captain America's shield. I was
It's like your
yes,
number one
bro.
favorite bounty hunter, man.
He's
Dude,
so
Embo's
cool, man.
He's got a dog.
Yeah.
Yes,
pull your horses on your favorite bounty hunter. Apparently, in Legends, the bounty hunter that Han Solo ran into on Ord Mantell was a bounty hunter named Skor. Skorr.
And
Gore.
was was there any other description besides that?
Skor is a character.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh!
Did not see that coming. Plot twist.
So Skor is a humanoid. He looks like an orc from Lord of the Rings with a like
Ooh.
half metal, like this side of his face is covered in metal with a red like Terminator lens, and then like, a
Nice.
bracket around the bottom of his neck.
So he's a
That
Borg?
is the only thing we
Oh,
have.
boy. Don't you dare mix up franchises, Christian. You can't do that. Strike one.
Fine, hornless Duros. How about that?
Okay. Well, there you go. Cool. Yeah, no, I would love to see more stuff like that in the franchise going forward. I don't know if they would do like in a couple of years where George Lucas is kind of getting up there and he's like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to come back for a second. And he just adds more stuff to the special editions. I think that would be wild.
I don't think you can touch it right now. It's only Disney right now. I think
No,
you can touch it.
George Lucas is gonna make a D Squad TV show. I'll be here for it.
Sure, I'm down.
He will come out of retirement of being like, yeah, I'm not doing anything with the Skywalkers or anything. I'm doing everything with the Delta Squad. And then
This
everyone's
is
D
gonna-
not
Squad, the
Star Wars,
droids and the
man.
frog.
that'd be
Look,
fun.
I like droids. I like frogs. It could be worse.
No. You love droids. Let's get that very, very clear. You have an obsession. Like, I just saw your new TikTok of where you
Made
put
a
on
tomorrow.
R2, like his like body and the head, and
Dude, at this
You
point, I
want to-
have to build a a fairy droid costume.
Yes, yes, you
I
do.
just have to.
I would love to see that at Star Wars Celebration 2024.
Things I've been telling you for months on end.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yep.
Remember when we were talking about the Bad Batch?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that is a wrap, pretty much, right? Like for
I
the
mean, yeah.
episode?
I mean, is there any? What do you guys think that? Because we leave on such a big cliffhanger of them basically being stuck there. They're not going to get help for a while. Not enough time is going to be. They're not going to be rescued in time for them to actually have decent food to be able to survive. So they're going to actually have to walk around, try and figure things out. What do you guys think the episode's going to continue from here and into the next episode? So anything that you guys think?
Using my big brain, the next episode's called Retrieval.
Josh, I see the next episode going one of
Genius.
two ways.
Wow.
It's like how the next episode of Mando is called The Rescue or something, and it was like, I wonder what's gonna happen there.
But like even based off the title, I see the next episode going one of two ways story-wise. Either it's gonna follow the retrieval of the Bad Batch, or it's gonna be the retrieval by Rex and Echo of other clones.
It's true.
I think it's the Marauder because of trailers.
Yeah,
And also the episode name.
just the episode name.
Oh man, yeah, no, and the let's see what, because the last episode happens on March 29th, and we will, for a couple of weeks, we'll actually be getting episodes of The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch at the exact same time. And we were also supposed to get Jedi Survivor, but we're not getting it until later, which is unfortunate.
Hey man, I'm just happy that we don't have to be like absolutely jam-packed with Star Wars talk.
But that's what I was excited for.
I like a little bit of time to be able to plan these before we start talking about them. If we had like seven things to do and just we were like a 5-hour episode, I'm like, I feel so bad for people who listen.
Yeah. I don't know. Connecting back to the Bad Batch, I like the ending shot where it's like a hero shot of all of them looking out and ready to conquer whatever comes next. Because, the whole episode is spent on them having animosity towards each other, not knowing how to deal with what's gone on. And so this was kind of like the hero shot of, like, quote unquote, the new batch, seeing them ready to go forward. And we got this episode of kind of recuperation from the 2-part mid-season finale, and we're now ready to go on to what comes next.
Yeah,
Ready for them to go find some food.
So here is here's a rumor of what someone said. This is one of our listeners. Apparently there was a rumor before that a ship that looks like the Bad Batch ship is spotted in Mando season 3.
I will say, pre-Empire ships are a hot commodity at that point in time.
It's like,
Razor Crest was one of those.
Cars, man.
Yeah. Oh, also, Tech just saying it's a form of transportation only for the Marauder. Just any vehicle, that hurt me on a physical level.
That was their home, and like Tech was just like, yeah, it's fine. It was just a thing of transportation.
That's like stealing someone's Winnebago.
Like, my car's a part of me. Like, that's like, it is my number one prized possession.
Yeah.
If it leaves, I don't know what I'd do. So hearing that kind of like, it hurt.
Yeah.
It really hurt.
If it leaves, implying that Josh's car is just going to drive off in the night by itself.
Dude, honestly, I wouldn't doubt it at this point.
Leave a note on the driveway.
So let's talk about this. So there was this new picture from the set of Andor, and I know the other Josh is going to be really excited about this. I'm going to pull it up here. He's got a new jacket. He's super.
He's shaved.
Yes,
He is.
he's young. And we have a gist of what season 2 is going to be like, because season 2 will lead directly into the events of
One.
Yeah. And we'll see him meet K2SO. It will be kind of like their origin story, which I think K2 was one of the best parts of Rogue One. Like his just like quick banter and the whole like part of where he smacks Cassian, and I just couldn't stop. It was so great because it's
And there's another one in it for you if you mouth off again.
Right. And then like the actor, he actually had a Diego Luna actually had to kind of block his face from laughing, and you could actually see it kind of in the scene.
Yeah.
And it's so great to have like, you know, that kind of chemistry. And I love the chemistry in Rogue One. And I'm glad and I'm happy to, you know, see that we'll be getting it in season 2. But how do we feel about the new outfits?
Cassian looks like me waiting for a Disney ride, just like looking around, confused. And Luthen's like my dad, just like pissed that he's still standing in line. It's only been like 5 minutes. That's what I got from that on the whole.
Okay.
As you were saying before,
hard to
Columbia drop.
Yeah, it's hard to just, you know, figure out what's going to happen based off one shot like that.
Oh well, but, no. I wasn't asking of what the scene was going to be.
Like,
I was asking.
I appreciate the fact that Luthen's serving up like, you know, another nice poncho look.
Oh yeah,
he's got a lot of those nice like outerwear pieces.
Yeah, I feel like
got a nice closet.
I feel like the bottom screen has like, I think all of you have ponchos, right? Like
I got a poncho.
Yeah,
I have one.
No, oh, sorry, other Josh. No, okay, all right. Well, there's also a quick kind of quote from the Respawn team about a certain species coming to Jedi Survivor. Josh, would you like to read that quote?
No, I can't read.
Oh, well, okay.
You can read it for me though.
Okay. What makes the Jedi so interesting is that their own mind and their own world, they're very chivalrous. They have they have a code they adhere to. It binds them to a certain code of honor for their conduct. It also binds them to their history and what's left of their people. So Bravis is not just this gruff grunt who can take an army down. He's got a long past. He's seen a lot of history. He could be thousands of years old. He's seen empires rise and fall. He's seen the Jedi rise and fall. He's seen the rise of the actual empire itself. So he's got a lot of tragic history and a lot of depth that we tried to explore. So for those who don't know, this character is the same species as Dirge from the Clone Wars.
Which it's so cool seeing how a character from Gendon Tartakovsky's shows, like those characters have popped up and are still some of like fan favorites. No. Like having Dirge, like Dirge was easily my favorite character and is still my favorite character in Star Wars. But having him and his species move on into something this far ahead is like, I'm super excited for it. I think what was it like? Originally, the old story was also that his species hates Mandalorians as well. So I wonder. Yeah, it was cool. I wish they would do something with that, but we'll have to see. So I'm excited. But him being like, I wonder if they'll do the whole like that he's made of worms and can be cut.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. Like, I wonder how they're going to like translate him into a modern design.
Yeah.
Well, they already have it from Dr. Afra or whatever. Because Dirge shows
he's technically canon, right? Yeah,
yes, he is. His species is.
In the same way that the Genndy Tartakovsky series is 2D, like it's the same type of thing in comic books too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just curious to see what it's going to look like in an actual 3D space.
I mean, if it's worms, we've kind of seen it through the Halo series.
Yeah, I was going to say it reminds me like Hunters.
Yep,
from
Halo,
Hunters, almost on the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. I am very excited for that game, and I love how we're going to explore more of the how we are going to explore more of the different parts of the Star Wars universe and different species that we haven't seen in a long time. And Dirge, we haven't really seen on screen like at all, like really since 2003. So it's
well, I mean, we got Asajj from that show.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have another character coming in. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm definitely excited to see where we go with that.
There's also a new clip that dropped for Mando that I wanted to bring up real quick, because of it. Honestly,
Chair spin.
yeah, it's just Grogu just kind of sitting in a chair and just kind of spinning around, and then Grief and Mando are talking about. Actually, I really don't need to bring up the clip because we're just talking about it now. But in the new clip, Grief is, kind of trying to convince Mando to stay on Navarro because of, at this point, Din Djarin is no longer a Mandalorian because he took off his helmet. Like his time is, done. Right. Oh yeah. And
Colt.
and I don't know if Griff is doing it for like selfish reasons or anything, but he is, saying like, hey, why don't you just stay here and work for me? And how do we feel about the journey that Din Djarin is about to go on? Do you think that he should, try and go back to the old ways of the Mandalorian, or do you think he should stick with the way that he's?
I feel like he's gonna learn the history, like the main big history.
Yeah.
We're gonna get like a whole backstory, and then
Yeah.
hopefully they're just like, yeah, your people, they used to, be ruled by Darth Maul, lol, and then like that whole gets all explained to him. I hope we get a whole lore dump for people that have never watched the animated series, so that they get more in key to wanting to go and watch the Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's like one of the central themes of the Mandalorian show, and it's touched on a little bit in the Book of Boba Fett too, but it's like, what does it mean to be a Mandalorian? And that's something that we have gotten a ton of info about in the EU with like stuff as far back as Twin Engines of Destruction, and then more in like the Republic Commando books, and then we heard more in the Clone Wars, and it boils down to there not being a clear-cut definition, and I think they're going to make that clear in this upcoming season. I don't know if the characters are going to come to any type of conclusion, but I think they're going to show the fact that, hey, it's not just what one extremist cult says or what one person who wears Mandalorian armor says. It's like a way of life and like set of beliefs that like isn't as narrow as some would lead you to believe.
Right.
From the start of the show, it's been, what do people want from Din, almost, either in his relationship with Grief, on him just being a bounty hunter, being part of the guild, to what Din can give for Ahsoka, giving Grogu and all that jazz. And now we're at a point where it's, what can he give? Like, what does Bo-Katan want with Din now that he's the owner of the Darksaber? What does Grief now want? Because, he's back at Navarro for a period of time, however long that is. He can continue his doing jobs for Grief role that he had when he was a bounty hunter, when he came in season 2 with Cara Dune. Like, how all those things can continue. I don't know if I brought this up on the show before, but ever since The Mandalorian first started with season 1, like the first shot of Din, I was like, I feel like this is going to be the story of the Mandalore, like the Mandalore period, of how his role from being a child, being a almost outcast from his Mandalorian sect, whatever that may be, with dirtied armor, only a chrome helmet to his name, fighting for just basic survival, up to becoming the Mandalorian, the voice for the entire Mandalorian people. So I really think we're going that direction, and holding with that, I'm excited to see where that goes.
Agreed. Any closing thoughts? Anyone? No?
I want more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to wait a week. I want more. Now.
Oh, all right. Well then. With that being said, you can find us on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Pod, Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're also on Patreon. We have a lot of content on there. So please go check it out. We have a lot more content coming on the way. Thank you for all of our our Patreon users. We would not be doing this if it wasn't for you. So thank you so much. We're also on TikTok at Star Wars Stuff Pod. We also have email, starstuffpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find our wonderful friends, Jake _I_Hunter, Kenobin _around, and Star Spangled Comment. And you can find Josh at Cloning Around.
Yep, clone_around.
There you go. Again, we would not be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. We love talking about Star Wars. It's an honor to have our fellow friends on the podcast every week talking about the Bad Batch, and now we have the other Josh on as well, which is fantastic. So we are, so thrilled to be, just kind of geeking out and just talking about Star Wars. It's a fantastic thing. So from all of us from the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, my name is Colin, and may the Force be with you always.